Hello, everyone, for joining us on Safer Sound. I am here with my guest, True Emeka. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
True Emeka, which is actually a really cool name. Do you mind sharing what you just shared with me
Oh
about
yeah.
the roots of it?
Yeah. So my grandfather in 1968 was looking for a name, right? Looking for a last name, right, to kind of shed the his last name born was Porter, right? But that
Oh,
would right. He recognized that would be
yeah, it's
not like
colonizing.
the yeah. Like why would an African person have a white person's last name? And the reality is, right, is because of slavery, right? That
Yeah.
would have been the person who owned his family. And so to kind of, right, find, that identity that's separate from slavery, right? He was talking to a friend of his from Nigeria, like, hey, what are some common, like, African last names? And he, like, gave him a list of, like, here's some, like, common names that I seen growing up in Nigeria, and my grandfather from that list chose Emeka.
Emeka.
Emeka, right? Which means that God has been good.
Okay. True Emeka. I can't say it.
G Verdade. Right, my
Verdade.
my apelido, right, my Capoeira name, G Verdade, which means the truth.
Okay. Yes. Yes. If you didn't derive that already. Well, I'm so excited to talk more with you right after this break. You are now listening to Highline's newest social justice podcast, Safer Sound. In this radio show, we will open our minds and our hearts to new perspectives and new people. Let's explore together the meaning of creating true, safe spaces in the Puget Sound and our local areas, especially through a transformative justice lens. Transformative justice is all about getting to the root of the systemic issues that continue to threaten the safety of our communities, not just physical, but also psychological and emotional safety. We want to see a more safe and more harmonious future for everyone in the Puget Sound region. Shout out to the Highline Heritage Museum for serving as our home base, and to One America 106.5 Low Power FM for offering this beautiful and unique space for us to have this show. We also want to give a shout out to Washington State Historical Society for sponsoring and making this show possible. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Tian Van, and I'm so excited to talk with you. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Safer Sound. Today I have a very special guest who actually happens to also be my Capoeira teacher. That is how we met. He is running the Tacoma Capoeira Center in Tacoma. And I'm so glad to talk with him because he not only is he a capoeira instructor, he's also an educator and just a really awesome person to talk with. I think y'all will really enjoy this conversation we're gonna have.
Thank you.
Yes, and oh, is there anything you wanted to share about yourself?
Oh yeah, just yeah. Hi everybody. I'm True. Yeah, just like Ian said, I'm a capoeira instructor and educator here in Tacoma and Seattle. Uh, yeah, that's me. I do a lot of stuff, but
Oh yeah, you also teach in Seattle too, so
yeah,
not
yeah,
just Tacoma, but also at the Seattle Capoeira
yeah.
Center. And y'all can look it up. The classes in Tacoma are actually free.
100% free, completely free.
100% free.
100% funded by the city of Tacoma, through through the Office of Arts and Culture, through the Tacoma Creates program, completely free. Um, just trying giving back to the community. Um, all we ask is that people show up, and then we can continue to do this and keep this little school alive and keep it free.
That seems like a really nice model to have to just take care of the instructor and the costs associated with that, and so you can offer it for free. I love that.
Yeah,
That y'all are
exactly.
doing that.
I think it's really important to recognize that, right, the culture comes from the people, and I don't want to be in the business of selling culture back to the people. You know,
Because then it becomes about who can even afford it.
Yeah,
and
yeah. I don't want to put up barriers to right because this is our culture. This is us.
Okay, well, that actually brings me into what I want to talk about next with your background, because you've basically been doing capoeira since you came out the womb, or even before then, honestly, probably in there
Yeah.
too.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
Basically your whole life, because
Yeah.
your father, is he
Yeah.
still an instructor?
He hasn't taught for a while,
Okay.
but yeah, no, I grew up in a capoeira studio that was also our house that we built from the ground up.
Wow.
With the intent and purpose of this is a community space. This is a space for capoeira. Um, yeah, but yeah, I grew up out in the woods in Port Orchard, right, teaching capoeira, bringing folks out to the woods, having these events where people play capoeira during the day, and then we cook and we enjoy each other's company, and then we taught people how to ride horses, and we go out and do like gardening.
Horses?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, horses, and horses are an important part of all this. Because capoeira goes back to the zebra. But we can touch
Oh,
on that
yes,
if
I
you
actually
wanted
do
to.
want to talk about that, because True actually knows a lot about the history. That I've noticed that in the classes, because he's always sprinkling in those little bits of knowledge. But I just love how you really emphasize the roots of the culture and where it comes from, especially in regards to its Afro roots. Would you call it Afro Latino?
Yeah, you could say Afro-Latino, Afro-Brazilian.
Brazilian specifically?
Right, I
Yeah.
always say, right, capoeira comes to us specifically from Brazil, but it came to Brazil from Africa, right? So there was, right, when we talk about capoeira and capoeira Angola, we're talking about the Afro-Latino thing, the Afro-Brazilian thing, right? Because it was born in the specific context of slavery in Brazil, and which was not exactly the same as slavery in the in the U.S.
But slavery nonetheless.
But slavery nonetheless, right? It started 100 years before any enslaved person arrived in what would become the U.S.
Yeah, so that was even far before the U.S. was even a thought.
Yeah, before it was even a thought. 100 years before there were enslaved people in Brazil. Right. So this context is really interesting. But yeah, it is right Afro-Brazilian, but it's right. The root is African. It comes from African traditions, and not even just one African tradition. It comes from lots of African traditions. Right. It's a combination of Bantu tribal practices and Igbo practice and Yoruba practices, and it kind of becomes this like a Pan-African art form, and that it takes a lot of aspects of West African culture and puts them together. Because that's what happened during slavery, right? And people came from disparate places, right? Unconnected, not entirely unconnected, but distant, right? That's a very large continent that we're talking about, and a very large area that folks were stolen from and forced together on boats through Middle Passage, not even being able to talk to each other because, right? These are very different languages. They're some of the most linguistically diverse places on the earth. But right, coming together, learning Portuguese, putting together these practices into like a cohesive art form in the crucible of slavery is how we get capoeira. Yeah.
So I am curious to know, with contemporary capoeira and what it is today, how are you hoping to stay true to those roots and like really, like you mentioned, selling the culture and things such as that. I feel that you see a lot of that now with certain even ancient cultural practices where it gets turned into this thing, like with yoga, for example.
Absolutely, and so the commodification of it is as a process. I was just talking about this with my brother-in-law. But it reminds me a lot of the work of Paulo Freire, who's a Brazilian educator, right, at the end of the father of a lot of really important moves in education. But he described the education system of the colonial state as being inherently necrophilic, in and loving of death.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
So, which is a really
Right.
strong word, but I think it really well captures
Yes.
this idea of kind of the colonial process is to kill the colonized culture, and which doesn't mean to like do away with it completely, but it is to freeze it in time. It is to capture it and hold it as it is and not let it grow and not let it go away or change at all. So a part of the way that we fight the commodification then of capoeira and kind of the boiling down and the homogenizing of capoeira is to embrace a living capoeira, embrace an art form that is constantly changing. And a lot of that has to do with, connected to the diaspora. Right, I was just training today. When I train, I like to we listen to capoeira music a lot of the time, but also, right, I want to listen to like hip hop and rap and other Afro Latino music and like connect capoeira to the diaspora because these all have shared roots, and connecting to those roots and looking at and feeling and exploring how those things connect is a great way of keeping this alive, as well as it makes it harder to like gatekeep what a purist, like a pure art form, right, that could be sold easily. But to say capoeira is a complex thing, capoeira is a living thing, that's harder to sell, right, because that means whenever somebody walks in the door, they're going to get something different, which capitalism doesn't really like that. They want to say, like, here's the
Uniform.
the uniformity. Here's your Big Mac. It's the same anywhere you go, right? Right? Capoeira, we can't do that. I mean, we could, and people try. Try to turn you into Eddie Gordo, on Tekken. But everybody doing the same moves. But it's not like that in actuality.
Okay, so yes, now that you mention it, let's get into the differences between Capoeira Angola, which is the one that you practice, and the other ones.
Yeah.
Because I know there's one that's like super fast, right?
Yeah. So there's different
It's kind of
forms
scary.
of
They're
capoeira,
like
and that's
swinging their limbs. They are kicking like
right.
for
It's
real.
the stuff that you see in like the media, and like The Protector was a great movie. I love martial arts movies, but yeah, and they have the guy in there, cha cha cha. He's moving. It's cool. It's cool, and I love it. But it's different than what we do, right? So capoeira Angola, I guess I should define that. So Angola is is a word not just for the country that exists today, right? This contemporary, there's Angola, which exists in
Which is a place.
which is a place. That's a country, a West African country where they speak Portuguese. But when we say Angola, we're referring to the whole of Africa, right? This is an ancient word that refers to the whole landmass of this place. Right?
And that's the term that was historically used in
Used by
Brazil.
African peoples, to describe Africa, or by some West African peoples.
Okay, so
Right.
the context of that is important.
Is
I see.
important, right? So when we say capoeira Angola, we're talking about capoeira of Africa. We're saying this is an African practice that we are, engaging in, where there's these ancient roots, even though, it's Brazilian in that, it was made by African people who were taken to Brazil. This is still an inherently African art form. And we always pay homage to that and pay, our respect to the continent for that reason. Whereas, there was a nationalist movement in Brazil, which kind of saw the commodification of capoeira, saw capoeira become the national art form, the national martial art of Brazil. We started seeing police being trained in capoeira.
The irony.
Right. So we kind of see this co-opting of the culture by the state, and again in the nationalist movement to kind of define, to redefine the state's relationship with Black people, with the African people who were brought enslaved, and we can see parallels of this, of course, in the U.S. when the U.S. tries to claim Black culture as American culture, right? And even though comes out of a very complex history, but yeah. So when we see that, we see kind of a more right, fast paced, right? That's a very obviously we can pluck out. These people are moving fast. They're also right. This is also more of a martial art that's in conversation with like MMA, with right or vôlei tudo in Brazil, right? The kind of the progenitor of MMA. We see a lot more just like fighting and like you're going real fast, real fast.
But have you ever done it that way before?
Right, I will go to regional spaces. This is called Capoeira regional. Regional means regional,
Regional.
right? Regional, right? The region of Brazil. This is Brazilian capoeira.
Okay.
And I'll I because I mean the people are lovely, right? The people are right. This is the community, and this is a different part of the community. With a slightly, it's a parallel history. But we both know it's something different. But I still go to that space, and if you're in that space, you play. Like this space asks of you. And yeah, I get down. It's fun. But Capoeira Angola is less about the fight. Capoeira Angola is a martial art, but it's a dance and it's a game. And specifically, kind of how I'd like to describe it is that this is within the community. This is an art for being in the community and being together. Which can I talk about the zebras?
Yes, I do. I do want to get into the zebras.
Yeah, let me talk about the zebras for a second.
I love this. I love this point that you
Wait, do you know why a zebra has stripes?
Oh, it's so that they. Oh, wait, you taught me this. I remember.
Remember why a zebra has stripes?
So that when they run together, you can't single one out.
Yeah,
right?
you can't see a single zebra,
Yeah.
right? It's just black and white
Just a
stripes.
blur.
So the shadows cast by, right? The other zebra isn't seen, right? So a predator just sees a big blob, and you can't pick out a single zebra. So the zebra knows in its stripes that we're stronger together, right? So they have built, in their genetic code, right? They believe in community. They have a very strong sense of community. And then the other thing about zebras is they're kind of mean. I grew up right with horses and like training horses. One of the horse trainers I worked with also trained zebras and described the differences between horses and zebras. It's mostly in the temperament. Right, zebras are they're kind of quick to anger, and they're like they take offense to like small things, and like they're a little temperamental. But then the thing about zebras is they would fight each other, and they have these hierarchical herd structures, much like horses, that would be determined by these battles. Right, they'd fight each other, and and be intense, and they'd be like loud, and they're jumping and kicking, and right, they'd fight, and then but both zebras would walk away. And that was the important thing. Both zebras would walk away unharmed because zebra knows, right, in its stripes, that if I hurt a member of my community and he can't keep up with me, then now I'm in more danger, right, because the predator could get me, right? That's my protection. That's what I'm camouflaging against. But the other note being, they both walk away unharmed, but also there's a clear winner, right? Somebody won that fight. Even though both are unharmed. And so the Bantu people of West Africa observed this. And they created then, in a case of biomimicry, the art form known as Ngolo. Ngolo means it's the dance of the zebra, right? It's this ritual where we gather in a big circle and we jump around and we kick and we fight. But we don't hurt each other.
This is even outside of the context of capoeira.
Yeah, this is before, right? This is kind of what some people call the proto-capoeira, right? This is where the meat of the art form kind of comes from, right? It's Ngolo, right? People having, settling disputes within the community by having these sanctioned battles where people are watching, and then it becomes less of a I'm gonna beat you up kind of fight game, but more of a chess game where we're trying to outsmart each other. We're trying to trick the other person into looking foolish. We're trying to look cool so that we win, come out on top, right? And we can define all sorts of things from
But
this.
you're not trying to hurt.
But you're not trying to
That's
hurt
the-
because
that's the main thing,
because if
yeah.
I hurt my community member, I'm in danger.
Yeah.
I'm in more danger now because the world out there is trying to eat me. but within my community, right, we're not trying to hurt each other. We are training. We are getting stronger. We're getting smarter. We're trying to be the strongest. We're trying to be the smartest, so that we can defend our communities, so that we can go out and be physically ready for battle. And this, right, capoeira is for when we're here, when we're training, right, in the context then of Brazil, when we're creating capoeira, this is also, right, this is slavery. This is a very intense time.
Yes.
And it's also a time of revolution. And capoeira being an art form of revolution, where capoeira was illegal, right? White folks didn't want black folks training martial arts in the first place. And then capoeira tried to, hide in plain sight, but it became becoming a dance, right? Ngolo, right?
Which is so cool. I
Right.
think.
So, right, Ngolo as a practice, that was a fight. There was two people fighting, right? But like while dancing. But then, right, in the context of slavery, we had to say, okay, well, we can't fight. We can't train fighting, so let's train dancing, We're just dancing. So whenever, the slave master comes up like, what are y'all doing? You can't have y'all doing this. And be like, no, we're just dancing. Look at us, we're having we're having fun. But in reality, right, you're training in front of their face. They caught on eventually. Like I said, this is a long history. Slavery in Brazil started 100 years before slavery in the U.S., right? So they caught on eventually. Outlawed capoeira, outlawed, every aspect of African culture, right? Drums, instruments, language, all of these things. Anything that the colonizers could define as African. They said that's illegal. If I catch you doing it, I'll beat you, might kill you. Right? So capoeira then, and African people then escaped. Really cool ecological side note. Right, do you know what the second largest rainforest in the world is?
It's not the Amazon, is it?
No.
That's the only rainforest I could think of.
Okay, so the Congo is the second largest rainforest in the world. And right, and this is in Central Western Africa.
Okay.
Right, so the people who were being stolen from Africa were from the Congo. A lot of them from the Congo, and were used to this environment. And then, what's the first largest rainforest in the world?
Is it the Amazon?
It's the Amazon, right? So you get people who are, who grew up and were accustomed to life in a rainforest. They were very capable of escaping slavery by going into the rainforest and say, okay, I can figure out.
I'd rather go into the rainforest than stay here.
Right, but then we also get these really important stories of indigenous and black people working together, right? Right, which is a super important note in history of capoeira, but also just in the history of colonization of the Americas. And black people and indigenous people work together. But yeah, so one of the things that happened a lot in Brazil is folks would escape slavery and go into the rainforest and start communities, right? Scholars will call them maroon societies, right? Right? In Portuguese, they call them quilombos. Quilombos, and the largest quilombo was the Quilombo dos Palmares, which we draw our name from. Palmarinos. Palmarinos. Wait. Microphone.
Palmarinho.
Right. Right. So we are of Palmares. Right. This is a society of escaped African people. Right. And at its largest, there was over 10,000 escaped slaves living free in the forest.
Wow.
And they were living in the forest. They were training for revolution. And then they would just continuously send waves of people out to go free more people. Right.
Oh.
Right. So, and this is a really important thing. It just in the history of colonization, in the history of slavery, is that right? People have always resisted. People have always done a really good job resisting, right? And then accomplished amazing things. And right, we're always tapping into that history and drawing on that history to inspire us today, right? To get us through, right, the times that we're living through. And that's why right, capoeira is important. But again, I've got a little off topic. But right, so the zebras.
Well, I think that the history, getting to that history too, is very important.
It's very important. It's very
Yes.
important. But yes, so right, so that's the history that we draw on as Angoleros, right? We play Capoeira Angola, right? Because right, it serves this role in community. And this is an important role today. This is why I still right I believe Capoeira Angola still serves us today. I think it's still very important. And right, it fills a different niche, different role in community than right a more aggressive right someone who's trying to learn this to go do MMA and like knock people out and whatnot. Capoeira Angola is for the community in the community.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for explaining that distinction, because I think a lot of folks don't know that there is these different types of capoeira and stuff. You only see what's on MMA or whatever.
And love me some MMA, right? Right. I think I watch the fights. I think it's
Okay.
right. It's entertainment, and it's also it's right. It's warriorship, right? And it's an important thing. But also, right, it's this gladiator sport where people are becoming, injured for the rest of their lives just to make some money.
I'm glad it was what a great way to put it. Yeah.
So there's that. Right, so just to say it's different. And then, right, even Capoeira Regional still recognizes the history of Capoeira and still recognizes that role. And you don't go to a regional place and then you just you walked in and you get kicked in the face and
Okay, yeah.
beat you up or nothing. But right, it's still a very warm and welcoming place. Right, it's still a sport. Right, I don't want to smear the art form.
Well, so is all forms of capoeira community oriented?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's a very community oriented sport when it's a sport or art form, right, or dance. Again, I relate a lot, at least in Capoeira Angola, a lot to samba and other dances. Right, samba is really it's that's it's a sister art form, right, of the same people, same time, same place, right. But then again, connecting it also to the larger diaspora, and my father was introduced to capoeira because he was a b-boy back in the day.
Oh.
Yeah.
What? Whoa.
Right.
So your dad's an OG.
Right, exactly. So, right, and recognizing, right, he saw a couple, actually, his brother saw it first when he went off to college and and then came back from college and was like, hey, I saw this art form and it's like breakdancing, but it's like the roots. And right, so making that connection.
Is it the roots?
It's a cousin, right?
Okay, yeah.
It's all in the
there's
same
definitely
family,
a lot of
right?
similarities.
It's the same, right? Again, these West African people were taken, and dispersed, right? They created the diaspora, and they created all of these different art forms all over the world that are different, but in the same family, right? Because these are the same people, right?
Yeah.
The same peoples making, expressing our culture over and over again in different places and different times. And it's a really beautiful thing. My goodness.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
This is
History, which I'm really glad that we covered.
No, I think your history is just the most important thing. Maybe the third most important thing.
What's number 1 and 2?
The now and the future. You know what I'm saying? Right, but the history, right, that helps us, get through the now and get into the future, figure out where we're going. Yeah.
Okay, that was a good answer. That was a good answer.
Thank
Let's see. Well, I did want to ask you about you, if that is all right. Yeah. Well, let's talk about how you got from you're doing capoeira your whole life, and then you were educated for some time.
True.
Were you doing capoeira during that time as well?
I will say, like, I took a pretty big break through, like, well, I guess the pandemic it was a big thing, but yeah, through college and like grad school, and getting my teaching license and master's degrees and stuff was like I really wasn't doing capoeira too much. I really wasn't getting into community as much as I'd like to, right? Because when the pandemic really forced us apart and we're all alone and sitting, but also capoeira is always there, and capoeira is always important, even when when I wasn't actively going out and engaging with my community. I was still in here. I was still writing about capoeira. Right, these were really common themes right in my writings, in both in my undergrad and my graduate studies. This is right. The theoretical underpinnings of capoeira are really important to my scholarship. Right, and my master's in teaching and my master's in education.
I forgot you have 2 masters, y'all. 2, not 1, but 2.
But yeah, no, capoeira is like even when we weren't able to come together, right? It was still so important and still in the forefront of my mind, right? Like I said, all right. When I was in the womb, right, my mother played berimbau a lot, and so I heard the music. That was the second thing I ever heard in my life, was the music of capoeira. And right, the first is my mother's heartbeat, right? But then the berimbau, right? Right, and so that's always just been, foretold then that it would be an essential thing in my life. It's always very important to me. And yeah, when I was born, my dad was, training, and when I was a kid, right, we opened up a studio, and it was just like training, and like getting, being in community. Getting grown.
Did you ever think that you would be doing what you are now? Sort of, you're basically passing the torch and bringing in a new generation, new waves of the culture.
I think, like, as a kid, maybe not, but I think it was like when I was like 16 when I started like teaching other people capoeira. That was like, oh, I might be doing this for a minute, like this might be my role, right? It's just to keep this art alive, keep doing it, keep bringing more people into the fold, and really falling in love with that process of somebody hears about capoeira, somebody watches an episode of Bob's Burgers with some capoeira in it, and they seek it out, and then I get to teach them, right? I get to teach them how to do these movements. I get to teach them this music, and then I get to teach them this history, and we get to I get to bring people in to the culture and into the community, and right, we can engage then in resistance together, and it's like that's just addictive, like, it really feels like a higher purpose.
Yeah, I can see that as your purpose, that intersection finally of you doing education, which you're still in actually.
So yes, I'm a substitute teacher in the Seattle Public Schools. Right, all week I teach, right? I teach capoeira Wednesday to Saturday.
Wow.
And then I teach, public school Monday to Wednesday. And it's just like,
wow.
Grinding.
Wait, so you only get Sundays to yourself? Do you even get Sundays? Then we have quotas on those days.
Well, it's like I bring my family with me, a lot of the time.
It is
like,
very
that's the nice
family
thing
friendly.
About capoeira is like my family is with me. Like it's all family time.
That's what I love about it, honestly, is like you can mix in different ages and like levels and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. And then right, Sunday, then that's our dedicated, like we go out and do something else, Try to get down to the water or something. Last Sunday went clamming. That was great. Caught a gooey duck.
Oh yeah, that sounds so good. Did
It's
you
also-
eat it?
Yes.
Oh.
Oh yeah, I made chowder. It was delicious. Also, shout out Evergreen. Evergreen gooey ducks. Appreciate y'all. I am a proud Evergreen alumni. I am a gooey duck till I die, like my father before me. Okay.
Oh my god, I didn't know what you were talking about for a second.
Yeah,
I didn't know
that's our-
that gooey duck
yeah,
was
yeah.
the.
That's our mascot.
What?
Yeah, Speedy. Yeah, look him up. You can see me and Speedy dance. We were on the.
What?
We were the. Oh, yeah. We
Wait,
were
I
on the
gotta look
website
this
for a
up.
long
We'll
time.
look up gooey duck evergreen.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What?
No, you gotta look up the new one. The old one was. Yeah.
Oh no. Let's see. Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, yeah. That's
so
Speedy now.
silly.
Yeah, and
Okay, that's the current one.
We love.
Y'all look it up if you want to. I guess we're getting a little off topic.
No. Evergreen is a really important place to me, right? We have Evergreen Tacoma.
That's where you got both of your degrees from?
No, that's where
Okay.
I did my undergrad.
Okay.
At Evergreen, and Evergreen Tacoma is just up in Hilltop. Has always been doing good work, always in the community, right? A place that is of the community. Lifting
Hilltop
up-
Tacoma.
Hilltop Tacoma. Yeah. We always whenever I get a chance to try to plug Evergreen because they've been good to me. And like I said, I'm second generation Evergreen Tacoma alumni.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. My father graduated from there. It's an amazing place, right? It's also right in an interdisciplinary institution, right, where we have lots of things happening at the same time. You go in for one thing, and you got to get every art and all the science that surrounds it, right, to get this holistic understanding of even something you didn't know that was connected to all these other things. And like that's very Capoeira. Capoeira, you show up because I want to do a cartwheel real good or something, and then suddenly we learn about transatlantic slave trade and the inter-American slave trade and like the history and like right we can understand our context that we live in more, but what really got you in was doing a cool little handstand.
Yeah, I
or
guess
something.
that's one way to get them in.
And that's the beautiful thing.
Yes. Okay, so I did want to do some rapid questions before you go.
Fire.
Let me think of some.
I think my chair's shrinking. It's just me. I'm slouching.
All
Okay.
right. So maybe in just a few sentences, can you tell me what sort of lessons can we take away from Capoeira and what kind of lessons should we be taking and applying to the greater society, non-Capoeira society?
Okay, yeah. So when you get out in the world, from doing Capoeira, you got to go out there. You got to be creative. You got to, be aware. You got to be ready, right? You got to look out for people who are trying to get you, and you got to look out for people who are trying to help you. Right? Find your community. Identify who's not helping you.
Real. Real.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing is community, right? Get your stripes. See who else got their stripes.
Yes.
And then run together.
I feel like that has been a common theme is just community. Even like in my past interviews, you talk just community, like people and having folks to lean on is so central to our existence. Okay. I did have another question actually. If you had to implement one rule, what would that rule be that everyone has to follow in the world?
In the world?
You only get one.
I get one rule that everybody has to follow.
You can't do and. You can't do an and on it either.
Okay. Oh my gosh. That's a good question. That's a good question.
Is there anything coming to mind?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is a reference, and I think we should be excellent to one another. Be excellent to each other, to reference Bill and Ted.
Be excellent to one another.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, I wish I wish you could give me some ands, but you know.
Okay. Well, what would the and be if you
Well,
could
no, it'd
add
just be
more to
like,
that?
yeah, you gotta, think things through, think about things systemically, recognize the cause and effect of actions. Yeah, just be aware, be intentional, because everything, you do has reactions in life, and you want to understand what your actions are really doing out there and all the ripples that they're causing.
Yeah.
Right, right, that is to recognize that you're not alone. Everything you do is within the context of community, in the context of history, and just move thoughtfully.
Yeah.
Because genuinely, I think everybody's already trying to be excellent to each other, but we just get, we have little things getting in the way.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you lose sight of it because you're so
Sure.
focused on all these other things, and that's okay sometimes. Yeah.
But yeah, we just gotta be right, be conscious, be mindful.
And final words for anyone who wants to learn capoeira or really just any skill that they want to master. Do you have any words of encouragement or even advice?
Oh my goodness. And the advice I give to folks for capoeira is like you gotta find it in your daily life, right? You come to class and we learn these things and they seem like foreign, and like a lot of things that we're doing with our bodies and the way that we're moving are really foreign to our everyday life. Right, a lot of this is music. We make music that we don't listen to on the radio, right? It feels disconnected, but when you go out with the intention then of like, okay, where's capoeira? Where do I see capoeira out in the world and in my everyday life? How can capoeira serve me in my everyday life? And once you make it like an important thing to your brain and have your brain start recognizing that, like, oh wait, no, I need capoeira. Then your brain will be like, okay, let me soak up all these capoeira lessons as much as possible. And that goes for anything, right? No matter what you're trying to learn, you got to go out into your world and your context, live your life, and recognize that the lessons of that in outside of you, so that your brain knows that this is an important thing. Because your brain is not in the habit of keeping unimportant information.
Yeah.
Right? Even if it feels like it's unimportant, your brain thinks it's important if you got it in there.
Especially making connections, I think, is
Right.
really important, like to retain the information and like just on a neurological
Exactly, make those
level.
strong connections, right? Make them neurons fire together. in groups.
Yes. Okay, I love that. That was a great piece of advice. Thank you so much, True, for being here on Safer Sound. I really enjoyed our talk today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you are just so easy to interview, just great. A fountain of knowledge, really.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see what you do with capoeira and just like with the school, but also just on an individual level because I see so much, like I see the vision. I see it for you.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to close that out. Thank y'all so much for listening. Okay. Bye now.